Have you ever heard of creatures so gigantic and powerful that God himself decided to hide them from humanity? At the heart of sacred scriptures and texts forgotten by time, there are two colossal beings, Behemoth and Leviathan, whose stories challenge everything we know about divine creation. One dwells in secret deserts, the other plunges into the depths of the abyss. But both are alive, awaiting the precise moment ordained by God to reappear. Why were these creatures created? What do they represent spiritually? And why are their names echoing again in the prophecies of the end times? The mystery of Behemoth, the earthly beast created by God. Behemoth, a name derived from the Hebrew behemoth, an intensive plural of behemah, meaning beast or brute animal, is a creature shrouded in mystery since the earliest days of Jewish tradition. The most direct and striking biblical mention appears in the book of Job, chapter 40, where God, in a majestic discourse to reaffirm his sovereignty in the face of Job's doubts, describes Behemoth as the pinnacle of his earthly creations. The description is powerful. Behold now Behemoth, which I made with thee, he eateth grass as an ox. Lo now, his strength is in his loins, and his force is in the navel of his belly. However, in the earliest Jewish exegesis and in mystical and apocalyptic Jewish texts, Behemoth is not merely a giant animal. In the Midrash and the Book of Enoch, it is a pre-apocalyptic creature, guarded by God in a secret place called Dinada, a mystical desert located in the east. According to the Book of Enoch and the writings of Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, 1st century CE, Behemoth was created on the sixth day, alongside Leviathan, but upon seeing their destructive potential if they lived together, God separated them. Behemoth was given the land, and Leviathan the seas. The Babylonian Talmud, in Baba Butra 74b, also offers fascinating glimpses into this narrative. It suggests that Behemoth is an almost immortal being, and its true purpose will only be revealed at the end of times, when it will be defeated by God in a ritualistic act, and its flesh will be served at the messianic banquet, a symbol of spiritual victory and the restoration of divine order. Theologians and scholars of Christian patristics saw Behemoth as a symbolic figure. Saint Augustine and other church fathers interpreted Behemoth as a personification of earthly pleasures and the flesh, a brute force that must be subdued by the spirit. In the Eastern Orthodox tradition, it is also associated with the raw power of creation, which needs to be sanctified. Mystically, Behemoth represents the strength of matter when in harmony with divine purpose. It is not evil, but rather a powerful, latent force, its energy at rest, like a spiritual volcano. This force can build or destroy depending on how it is directed. That is why it was hidden. Humanity, without spiritual maturity, would not know how to handle its presence. Leviathan, the dragon of the abyss and lord of the seas. Leviathan, whose name comes from the Hebrew Leviathan, meaning coiled or twisted serpent, is presented in the Bible as a colossal, untamable maritime creature endowed with immeasurable destructive power. Its most detailed mention occurs in Job, chapter 41, where God describes it with majesty. Canst thou draw out Leviathan with an hook? Who can open the doors of his face? His teeth are terrible round about. Out of his nostrils goeth smoke, as out of a seething pot. The description evokes a creature that is not merely physical, but essentially symbolic and spiritual, an archetype of chaos. In Psalm 74 verse 14 and Isaiah 27 verse 1, Leviathan is portrayed as the serpent of the abyss, a sea monster that will be destroyed at the end of times. In the psalm, God is described as breaking the heads of Leviathan, a powerful allusion to divine control over cosmic chaos. Isaiah prophesies that the Lord, with his sore and great sword, will punish Leviathan, that piercing and crooked serpent. In extra-canonical Jewish traditions, such as the Book of Enoch and the Apocalypse of Isaiah, Leviathan takes on even more apocalyptic dimensions. It is described as female, in contrast to the male Behemoth, both created on the fifth and sixth days of creation. To prevent them from destroying the world, God separated them and cast Leviathan into the Sea of Beria, a cosmic reference to the deep, hidden waters of the spiritual world. It is not merely an aquatic creature. It represents the depths of the collective unconscious, primal fear, and the rebellion of the world against divine order. The Talmud, in Baba Butra 74b, states that at the end of times, God will fight Leviathan, slay it, and use its skin to cover the tents of the righteous in the millennial kingdom. Its flesh will be served at the great messianic banquet, and the creature's death will signify the end of chaos and suffering in the world. This eschatological vision also appears in sources like the Midrash Tehillim, where Leviathan symbolizes the final frontier of evil that must be overcome. In early Christian literature, especially among the Church Fathers, Leviathan was quickly associated with Satan or evil personified. Saint Thomas Aquinas and other medieval theologians identified Leviathan as one of the 7 princes of hell, representing envy or pride, depending on the tradition. Yet, at the same time, it was seen as living proof of the grandeur of God's power, for even this fearsome being cannot act outside divine permission. In Jewish mysticism, particularly in Kabbalah, Leviathan is seen as an entity linked to the world of Tohu, the realm of primordial chaos. It is associated with the sea as a symbol of uncontrollable emotions, the depths of the subconscious, and the universe's secrets yet to be revealed to humanity. That is why it remains hidden. Its revelation is expected as one of the signs of the end times and the coming of true spiritual balance in the world. The cosmic and spiritual symbolism of Leviathan and Behemoth. Leviathan and Behemoth are not merely monstrous figures described in ancient texts. They represent 2 archetypal forces that shape humanity's spirituality. Their cosmic symbolism is deeply rooted in both scripture and Jewish mystical tradition, particularly in Kabbalah and Midrash, where it is understood that everything created by God has a hidden purpose and a spiritual function. Behemoth, tied to the earth, is the force of the body, matter, stability, and persistence. It is the manifestation of contained vital energy, like an immovable mountain or an animal that, despite its immense strength, lives in peace with the ground. Spiritually, it represents human energy when in harmony with its physical essence, the mastery of instincts, self-control, and connection to earthly creation. It also symbolizes the world of formation in Kabbalistic structure, where brute forces begin to take shape and purpose. In contrast, Leviathan is linked to the sea, chaos, and fluidity. It represents intense emotions, unbridled thoughts, and the secrets of spiritual and psychological depths. In Kabbalistic thought, it is related to the world of chaos, Tohu, which precedes the divine structuring of creation. It is the realm of forces not yet organized, where divine light has not been fully channeled. Leviathan is an energy that, if untamed, devours. But if understood and purified, it can become a tremendous source of enlightenment. These 2 creatures also reflect the struggle between the Yetzirah, inclination toward good, and the Yetzirah, inclination toward evil, concepts deeply explored in the Talmud and Zohar. Behemoth can be seen as the inclination that is strong but can be directed toward good, the control of appetites, the firm foundation of morality. Leviathan, however, is the inclination that, if left unchecked, rebels and plunges humanity into the abyss of an uncontrolled ego. In many rabbinic teachings and Kabbalistic texts, the battle between these 2 forces is an image of the inner conflict within the human soul. The wise person does not destroy their instinctive forces, but redirects them. True spiritual victory is not over the creatures themselves, but over what they represent within us. There is something even deeper. Both creatures were created by God and thus possess an intrinsic holiness. This teaches us that even chaos and brute force are part of the divine plan and can be transformed. It is the mystery of evil in theology. It exists, but it is under God's absolute control, and even it will be used to manifest the final glory. Finally, the fact that they are hidden Leviathan in the deep waters, Behemoth in a mystical desert, is not merely geographical. It is a spiritual lesson. There are truths and forces within us and in the universe that will only be revealed when we are spiritually ready. And when that day comes, humanity will not only behold these forces, but also participate in the great cosmic reconciliation they herald. Hidden and apocryphal references. The role of Leviathan and Behemoth in the final judgment. The apocryphal and hidden narratives involving Leviathan and Behemoth in the final judgment are among the most symbolic and impactful in Jewish tradition and, by influence, Christian mysticism. These 2 beings are not mere legendary creatures, they are essential components of the divine plan for redemption and final justice. The texts that best reveal this dimension are found in apocryphal books like the 2nd book of Baruch, the 4th book of Ezra, and the book of Enoch, as well as various passages in the Talmud and Midrash. According to these sources, Behemoth and Leviathan are like sacred pieces on a grand eschatological chessboard. From the moment of their creation, they were separated. Behemoth was confined to a spiritual desert called Dinada, while Leviathan was cast into the abyss of the Sea of Beria. This separation was not a punishment, but a preparation for the future. Jewish tradition teaches that both await the great day of judgment when they will be brought forth before humanity. In Midrash Tanchuma and Baba Butra 74b, there is a vivid vision of this consummation. At the end of times, God will challenge Leviathan to a cosmic battle. The monster will be defeated, and its skin will be used to cover the tents of the righteous, a deeply symbolic image of eternal protection and spiritual victory. Behemoth, in turn, will be sacrificed, and its flesh will be served at the great messianic banquet, an eschatological feast where the saints will rejoice in God's presence. This meal represents the fullness of justice, the fulfillment of divine promises, and the definitive end of suffering and moral confusion. There is also a mystical beauty in this vision. Neither Leviathan nor Behemoth is destroyed as punishment. Rather, their essences are redeemed. This echoes a profound spiritual lesson. Even the most primitive and wild forces of creation can be consecrated to God and used to celebrate the good. In the Zohar, this process is described as the elevation of the Kelepot, the purification of the spiritual husks that encase hidden divine light. The death of these creatures is also directly tied to the purification of the world. Leviathan represents the depths of chaos, and its defeat symbolizes the Creator's absolute dominion over what seemed untamable. Behemoth represents earthly strength, and its sacrifice reveals that even matter can be transformed into a sacred offering. This moment of final judgment, with the creatures becoming sustenance for the righteous, is interpreted by mystics as the return of all things to their source. It is the world being restored to the state of harmony before the fall, when humanity will live in total communion with God and creation. The Messianic banquet is thus more than a celebration. It is a cosmic rite of spiritual reintegration and the triumph of light. Why did God hide these creatures from humanity? The divine decision to conceal Leviathan and Behemoth from humanity is one of the most enigmatic and symbolic aspects of biblical theology and Jewish mystical tradition. In texts like the Talmud, Midrash Rabbah, the Zohar, and apocryphal writings, this concealment is not merely physical, it is profoundly spiritual. God, in his wisdom, did not hide these creatures out of fear or necessity, but as part of a cosmic plan where everything has its appointed time for revelation. In the Midrash, for example, it is said that upon creating Leviathan and a female counterpart, God realized that if they coexisted freely, they would bring total imbalance to creation. So, he slew the female and hid the male until the final time. This teaches us that certain forces, though holy by nature, cannot exist in the world without causing chaos, not due to malice, but due to their magnitude. The same applies to Behemoth, whose strength is so colossal that its mere presence among humans would disrupt the ecological and spiritual balance of the world. Beyond their physical power, there is a deeper level. These creatures represent dimensions of knowledge and spirituality that humanity, in its current state, cannot yet bear. The Zohar, the primary work of Kabbalah, states that God hides not only creatures but also revelations, secrets, and spiritual energies that can only be accessed by elevated souls or in times of redemption. The concealment of Leviathan and Behemoth is thus a living metaphor for the veil separating the physical world from the fullness of the divine. Their presence is tied to the final revelation. God keeps them hidden as a sign that there is still more to be unveiled, a spiritual pedagogy that teaches humility, reverence, and hope. It is as if the Lord was saying, "You are not yet ready for all that I have prepared." Some rabbis add a fascinating mystical detail. The mere fact that Leviathan and Behemoth continue to exist in secret sustains the cosmic balance. Their hidden existence serves as a spiritual anchor, preventing the world from descending completely into disorder. The concealment is not a denial, but an act of divine love, a way to preserve creation until humanity is ready to comprehend the forces that shape the universe beyond matter. This readiness refers not only to knowledge, but to holiness. That is why only the righteous are invited to the messianic banquet with the flesh of these creatures. Only those who have sanctified themselves throughout their lives will be able to absorb the revelation that Leviathan and Behemoth carry. These creatures are not mere legends, they are spiritual keys pointing to hidden realities and future revelations prepared by God. If you are impacted by all this and want to keep diving into the mysteries hidden in Scripture, leave a like, comment below with your thoughts or what else you'd like to see, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't just study religion, we live spirituality with depth. Commit to yourself on this journey of faith and knowledge.